Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. Confusion is reigning over where the rematch with Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz Jr. is going to be later in the year. I think many of us had expected it would probably land in Cardiff given some recent comments by Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua's promoter. But Anthony Joshua's own interview with Sky Sports, it seemingly set the cat amongst the pigeons because he said a number of things and some of them contradicted each other. And as a result, some of the coverage of that interview has been a bit all over the map. I myself reported the neutral ground angle which Anthony Joshua made very clear in that interview, but I did note as well that he said he wanted to fight in Cardiff, so it was a little bit all over the place, the interview, and some of the coverage has been as well. Like Sky Sports, for example, it essentially pushed the Cardiff line, and it didn't even include the main quote which I used for my story, which talked about the neutral grounds angle. And just to remind you, he said, "Wherever it is, it will be on neutral grounds. I want Ruiz to have a say. He's a champ. I want to fight here. He wants to fight elsewhere. We'll fight on neutral grounds, no problem." But the Sky Sports coverage, you would never know that that was actually said. You would never know that actually neutral ground was an option for this rematch because it had certainly slanted all towards Cardiff. A sort of cursory mention of Joshua saying that neutral ground could be an option, but it's all about Cardiff. And BoxingScene.com, it sort of reported a similar sort of line saying that he'd love to have it in Cardiff. But World Boxing News, picking up on the other side of the coin, which is the neutral ground angle, has said that Saudi Arabia is now favoured venue to host Rematch. So it's all a little bit all over the place, and I think Anthony Joshua unwittingly has kind of spread some misinformation because he was saying a number of things and not all of them are stacking up, because obviously it can't be both. It can't be neutral ground and it can't both be Cardiff at the same time. He did make a distinction in the interview saying that he has stepped back from the business side. He's not going to be making the decision. But I guess, to some extent, do we really believe that? I think he would have a big say in this. And certainly he was talking up Cardiff within the interview quite a bit, saying that he would want to fight there, the fans, 70,000, 80,000 people, the energy, yada, 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 all that sort of thing. But obviously the other side with the quote that I just mentioned, he said it was going to be on neutral ground. So it's seemingly we're no clearer on where things would be, given some of the way that this story has been treated, some of the comments that have been made. And obviously World Boxing Scene has obtained some information, and in which it says in its article that Saudi Arabia is now the favoured venue to host the rematch. So yeah, what do we actually make of this? Because I think if I was to hazard a guess, because ahead of that interview, Adam Smith, before he got into questions with Joshua, he actually said Joshua had done a big sit down with Anna Woolhouse, so presumably they're getting a bank of material ready for when the fight is announced and all that sort of stuff when Joshua's in training camp, so they can use some stuff to sprinkle, as build-up coverage. And I have been thinking about this since the original video that I did, but also since Joshua's statements on this whole thing, that Sky surely would have the inside running on this, that they would be a bit more in the know about where it was going to be. And when I read the article, which was well after I'd done my video, I did think, wow, this is really slanted towards the Cardiff stuff. All the other bits and pieces, even the one mention of neutral ground, which they had sort of quoted, they had actually bracketed an if, which Anthony Joshua had never said. So I kind of thought that was really interesting. But you would imagine Sky Sports may be in the know here, and that Cardiff has been named as the front runner, but maybe some of this is going to be a bit of blowback on Anthony Joshua in terms of he said a few things. Obviously, it's live TV. He can't take them back. I mean, maybe he was saying it from the heart, but obviously in terms of the way that people interpret the information, it's all over the map. Multiple media outlets have been reporting the neutral ground angle, but multiple media outlets have been reporting that it'll be in Cardiff. So seemingly we're no closer to knowing where it's going to be, except we got a very confusing update from Anthony Joshua. And in response to a tweet, because I did the direct quote on my Twitter, someone said that Joshua was making about as much sense after round 3 against Andy Ruiz Jr. on June 1st. And Ruiz Jr., he's actually responded to one of the comments that Joshua made, because obviously Joshua said, look, I'll whoop Andy Ruiz Jr. The quote was, Ruiz's uncle could be the referee and I'd still whoop him. And he'd said that, if they were to fight in Tijuana, yada, yada, yada. So Ruiz, he has responded on Twitter saying, AJ says he can whoop me in Tijuana. Prove it. Let's run it in Mexico. Remember that you did have a huge reason to come to America, and that was to build your profile. And Joshua did state in that interview regarding he didn't have to come to America, but obviously the reason that he did do that was to build his profile, and it was kind of ended up being a bit of an American nightmare. But in terms of Tijuana, saying that he'd go there and still whoop Andy Ruiz Jr., even if his referee was the uncle, I think that's just big talk. I don't think they have any intention of going to Mexico. I don't think they have any intention to go anywhere that would favour Andy Ruiz Jr. I think they'll try to take all the advantages away. And neutral ground, possibly that may favour Joshua just because he's used to the big events. He's used to those big open stadium fights. So, yeah, it remains to be seen what they're going to do, but I'm not sure Joshua's done himself any favours with some of these comments that he's made, because the situation's become more confusing. The bookies are starting to get behind some of these neutral venues, but if it turns out that it is Cardiff, I think some people are going to turn around and go, well, why did you say it was going to be on neutral ground? And I guess he can sort of fall back and say, look, I don't make the decisions. But given for his entire career, Eddie Hearn has stated Joshua makes the decisions, I'm not sure many people would actually believe that Joshua had very little say. Even though he's saying he wants to concentrate on the fighting, I think he would have had certainly an impact, and he's made it very clear publicly he wants it in Cardiff, but then at the same time he said, let's have it on neutral ground. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about this subject because 24 hours ago the interview comes out, and it's seemingly he says one thing, but then he says another, and it's been taken all over the place by fans, by media, and I think actually there's some disinformation that's probably been spread by mistake here. But what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.